One thing that's most important, not only the musicians that came from the West Side, but those of them that the era, the culture that was involved with us living on the West Side in a segregated kind of situation and getting past all of that. You know, some of us was able to go on and make careers for ourselves with some of the things that we've learned here. Ted Dunbar is one of those people that I'm going to speak about. Ted Dunbar is my cousin, my first cousin. Came from a family of pharmacists. That's what he majored in college. But he was a musician in high school and went on and became active on the East Coast and got with some musicians on the East Coast, man, and that's exactly what they did. I'm hoping that the adults, and I was hoping that there would be more young people here because most of these programs that I do is in hoping that young people would come because they're the ones that we need to leave the history with. They don't know anything about what the conditions were like on the West Side. Those of them that are there. Most of them have left the West Side and moved to the East Side of Port Arthur. So those are the kind of perils that we face. Those historians like myself that try to get this message out and to where that the young people will know their history on the West Side of Port Arthur. And that's what I'm hoping for, basically. And maybe somebody will pray for me that I can do this again next year. I want to thank you guys for coming out this afternoon, those of you that did in this rainy season. I'm going to be able to utilize this time here. Thank God for Stephen Williams and the group here at the Port Arthur Library for giving me the opportunity of doing this. I'm doing this in dedication to James Bigham, who passed away, who was our worshipful master with Mercy Lodge number 27. And he talked me into doing this for this particular year. The unfortunate thing is that he has been taken out of our midst. Journey we all have to make. That's the unfortunate thing about life. I say this all the time, that God played a hell of a trick on the human being. When we get slapped on the behind and we cry the first time, we thought we start the journey toward the tomb. We just left the womb, so we started toward the tomb. And that's what we have to look forward to. Now, what we do in between now, Brother Benton, is what's important. You know, how we handle life situations is important. Listen to the young man and see, he even crying out. The young man knows. Brother Boutte. Brother Boutte is another one of our Mason brothers in the back there, man. Hell of a singer. You guys don't know. If you don't know Brother Boutte been singing, man, as long as I can remember knowing him. He's always been in a quartet or quintet or something, man, for the church. Yeah, hell of a singer. Yeah, he's a few years behind me. Get him covered in there. My Mason brothers, the Masons are coming from everywhere, man. And I love that about them. You know, that's one of the things that I loved about it. And I wanted to become a Mason a long time. If it had not been for that boy over there with the red cap on and Manuel Casper, I don't think I would have been able to get my 32 degrees and my Shriner's degree, man. But thank God for that. And see, I've got a history that you guys don't know about, and I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to wait. You're going to have to get my book. You'll have to get my book, whatever Chris and I sit down and complete it. In its entirety, you just don't want to know. And it's my history and all of the dark things that I did, along with some of the mountains that I've been able to stand on. With the educational system being as it is now, me being raised during Jim Crow and during segregation, I'm sure Richard will tell you, Richard and I were classmates. He went to a different elementary school than I did. And so in knowing these things and being from this West Side and coming from that particular era, We didn't learn these things in school. So much of the information that young people need to have nowadays, and that's why a program like this is so important. I wish more young people would come. I said this when we did the marker, the slave marker over there by City Hall in Port Arthur, that it was a lot of young people out there, man, and we was able to get that message. John Hubert and I were able, to come with Gail Pelham and all of those. They got together and we did a bang-up job. We've got a marker over there now. There were slaves that was dropped off in this area during slavery. To remember, Juneteenth is a celebration for Texas. I went to Denver, Colorado, right when they was having Juneteenth. I said, what are you guys celebrating the Texas holiday? But there's a bunch of Texas people up there in Denver, Colorado, and everywhere. We migrated from the South. I was telling Krista about the Chicago group. I sang Precious Lord. The guy that did Precious Lord, Mr. Dorsey, he left the South and went to Chicago, man, and was playing blues along with gospel music, And so we've got that kind of history here. The young man from Channel 12 just asked me, what am I hoping to achieve with a program like this? And each time that I've done these programs, I was always hoping that more young people like Marilyn would be in the audience, or the young man that Brother Lewis has brought here today. Because it's this history that needs to be passed on, man. I'm not gonna be here forever to be a historian. Richard ain't gonna be here forever to talk about what it was like on that west side of Port Arthur, Texas, from the 40s, man, up until 64 when we finished. And see, I left here. 1964, the day after I got my high school diploma, I left here going to Baylor University, me and Benny Woods, to a music workshop. That was where I was gonna go to school. My stepfather at the time was a seaman, but he worked out there at the Black Cat. I don't know if you knew anything about the Black Cat, Joe. I'm just remembering, I'm just talking. She's got some pictures that I take. This is James Bigham. But before I start that, Krista, this history that I'm talking about of this West Side, man, we're that generation that was left with Port Arthur, Texas, and the brother behind you there. But our generation, when Caucasians left downtown Port Arthur, they left us with the inner city of Port Arthur. Unfortunately, some of us went to service after high school. Some of us left and went to college. Some of us didn't come back here after college. Our careers would not grant us to come back. They had a little opera company here. Gary Parks tells me that I coined myself as the first opera singer from Port Arthur, Texas, black or white. He tells me that his dad sang opera with the little opera company that they had in Beaumont. I told him, I said, well, okay, what I'll do for my profile, I'll take that off, and I'll say that I was the first African-American and only African-American to go off and sing classical music in Port Arthur, Texas, and I am, and I don't say that braggadociously. I say that because that's a fact, man. I mean, I went to New York City, man. I was eating bagels and Polish sausage. I was living in Queens, New York. I know Fred Trump and Donald Trump, man. That's why I would never spit on Donald Trump if he was on fire. I went to New York, and he denied giving me rooming. His daddy had just opened a new housing complex there in Queens, New York. Man, I ended up going to Flushing, but I was singing in Manhattan, people, singing in New York City Opera Company. And that kid right there with the red cap on, he wasn't even born yet. Yeah, when he was born in the 70s, I held him on my chest. That same guy there with the red cap on was my kid. I have had 3 wives and never had made any children. And women ask me that, do you have any children? No. They look at me, black men, that's unheard of for black men. Black men got 2 or 3 babies mamas. So, no, I ain't got no babies mamas. But anyway, Let me start here, man. James Bickham is the guy that I've got a plaque here for him, and we'll get that to his wife eventually today. And but we've got this made, Chris and I did, and this is for James. I'm gonna present this to Debbie, you know, and because he's the cause that this program is going on today. Because last year I did this program in March because this facility was tied up, so Stephen and them gave me the opportunity of doing it in March. So I did this program in March. It's gonna be my last time doing it, I said. Bigham saw that I had a nice crowd in here last year. I probably would have had a nicer crowd if it hadn't been, you know, if it hadn't rained on me. But he talked me into doing this again, under the auspices of having Mercy Lodge as being one of the sponsors. The library sponsors me here, and then Mercy Lodge. So I'm gonna continue to do this, man, as long as I've got some health, and as long as I can do a little something here. That's right. Joe Elwell, if you guys don't know who he is, he's the guy that you hear on Musical and all of these nice classical stations. Yes, he does all of that. KBLU, Lamar University. And I've been doing this with Joe. Joe's been interviewing me for a while. Hopefully that program that I did of Paul Robeson at First United Methodist, I'm gonna show that here. I'm gonna get a date to show that concert. Me and Chris Vaughn. Chris Vaughn is Randy Vaughn's nephew, and John Adolph over there in Beaumont, he's Randy Vaughn's nephew or something. And so I've been tied up with those folks when I first came back from South Dakota. This is what I met with Major Goldman. I don't know if you guys remember Major Goldman being the music director over in Rock Island years ago. And he's at Antioch in Beaumont. And he found out that I was back in the area. And so he had me as the featured soloist for the entire month of February. Back, that was a while ago, wasn't it? About 10 years ago now. But anyway, I'm happy to have Edgar Walker here with me today. You guys may not know who Edgar is. Edgar was the photographer for Chad Butler and Bernard Freeman, Pimp C and Bum B. That was their photographer right there. And he's the guy that went over and got Chad's stuff when he passed away over in the Beverly Hills Hotel in Los Angeles. That's the guy that went and packed up Chad's stuff. We're gonna do some movies out of Port Arthur and Beaumont. We're gonna find us some subjects. Good talent came out of this area, people. That's what I'm gonna talk about now. Chris, go to the next one. This is crossing the tracks. Houston Avenue, going to the west side. That was our boundary. That was the boundary. If you got caught after dark on the east side of these, and see, this is we call it the west side, but it's really south, and it's really north. The east side is really north. You know, I don't know how they got that west side and east side started, because that's not east and that's not west. You laughing at me. But that was when you cross that, buddy, you better slow down. You're about to tear up your car if you're on 9th Street. That's 9th and Houston Avenue right there, Richard. That's behind where Union Drug used to be. Come on, Chris, the next one. I had a little car that would pedal. We lived in the first apartments there. He ended up getting the car. About three or four. I was a bad boy, man. I was something else. And see, I remember stuff all the way back to when I was 2 years old. I remember when my dad and my mom separated. I remember that whole event that day. Me and my brother was in a baby bed. I don't know if you guys remember old baby beds that had the railings. I don't know if people still use them or not. But he was 18 months younger than me, and he cried. My mom was sitting on the floor crying, pile of clothing my dad and tore up her clothing. He mad, he was a jealous guy, and they had separated so he would see my mother. He lived across the street from the Hollywood Theater. Okay, Krista. But round that corner there, man, I'd take my little old car. I knew what time the features would end at the Hollywood Theater. So I'd pedal on around, Joe, and I'd do me a U-turn. And I'd set up in my little car like this. And I'd pray with all the women that came out, that came out of the Hollywood Theater. My grandmother said, boy, they're some of the baddest little boys in the world, me and my brother. You understand? But I was like that, Richard. There ain't much change with frogs, Richard. Ain't much change, man. I just got older. That's all that has happened. This is Hollywood Theater, I believe. This is 9th, across the street. That right there it's a concrete slab that's left of the remnants of the Hollywood Theater. Across the street from that Hollywood Theater on the west side was KJet. KJet had a studio. They don't have a radio station anymore in Beaumont. But KJet was our answer to rhythm and blues. They had a substation on Texas Avenue. And our daddy lived behind them. He had an apartment behind them, you know. This is my half sister here, you guys. This is my half sister right here. This is Karen Duncan. Her mama is Catherine. Richard, you know her mama, Catherine. Had 2 daughters with her. She has a sister. She has a sister over there in Beaumont. So I'm not all by myself. My brother passed away. Miss Tate was asking me about my brother. My brother passed away some 7 years ago. People here called him Itchy. I got the name Frog. That was a little program on television called Andy's Gang. And there was a little frog on there called Froggy the Gremlin. My voice changed, Joe. I went in the YMCA on the west side. That was our hangout for young people to stay out of trouble. So we'd go to the west, we'd go to YMCA. So KJet, it was a guy in there they called KJet. He heard me talking, Richard, and my voice was changing, man. It was getting gravelly. I'm shooting pool with flat top in there. He said, man, listen at that youngster over there, man. Listen at that voice. He sounded like Froggy the Gremlin. So I got the name Frog. And I don't care where I go, anybody that knows me from Port Arthur or from Prairie View, I was telling Richard I was in Denver. I had just moved there. I had been there about a month and a half, walking up a street, somebody hollered, Frog Perkins. I said, oh my heavens, who in the world? But I kept on walking. I got to the corner, 12th and Pennsylvania was where I was walking, Joe. She said, Frog Perkins, I'm up here on 2nd floor. It was a child that I had gone to Prairie View with from Houston that knew me. I knew it though. It had to be somebody from Port Arthur or somebody from Prairie View that knew me to know that my name was Frog. So I've carried that name, and even 79, he calls me Frog. Old Richard Thomas still calls me Frog. Huh? Now where we? Okay, this is the YMCA that I was talking about. It's just a vacant lot there now. Our library was right next to it. It's called Dr. Matthews Building now. Dr. Matthews is one of our doctors. You're gonna see some pictures of him. I got some pictures of what was going on that west side, some of the businesses and so forth that we had. Wait, put the next one. That was where the Lincoln movie theater was. They got a little bar there now called Lane's. That bar has always, that used to be a barbecue place. And when they tore down the Lincoln Theater, the barbecue place moved. I'm trying to think of who that was. Because we had, Jules Enet was a barbecue place that we had. Red Coleman. That was Red Coleman's place. And Tommy Como ended up opening the remnants of that over there on 8th Street in Texas. Then he moved up on Bluebonnet later on. My man back there said, man, I'm a historian. Believe me, man, I remember all of this stuff. My daddy, he was astounded when I told him about that two-year-old bout with him beating up my mother and tearing up her clothing. He was the only person that ever called me Dick. He said, Dick, you remember that? I said, yeah, Daddy, I remember that. You know, he was up there on Kansas where he stayed Richard. But he's the only person that ever calls me Dick, you know. And but anyway, that's where the Lincoln Theater was. And I know you probably don't know, Richard, but we had another movie theater around the corner over there by Freeman's, behind Dopey's, where Dopey's had the pool hall there and the Port Arthur Cafe. Some of the best fried chicken wrapped up in newspaper. That's right. That's right, buddy. You go there at 2 o'clock in the morning after coming out of the Cosmo Key Club or Val's or the Celebrity. You come out of one of them clubs, that's where you go. You go on the Dopey's, boy, get some of that fried chicken over there, Jack. Wrapped up in a newspaper. Or you go to the Chinaman. The Chinaman got green and rice. They got that fish, that flat fish that they would fry and put on. Say, man, that west side of Port Arthur, Edgar, boy, that was something. They would call it Little New York. And I went to New York City, and people that knew about this area here that was seamen, they said, oh, you from Port Arthur? You from that Little New York? See, man, them guys would get off the ship at Gulf Hall. They wouldn't get to Houston Avenue. They would walk from the ship. When they would park it at the Gulf refinery, them seamen would walk, them foreigners would walk up 7th Street. They call it Ransom Howard now, I believe. They would walk up 7th Street. Them beer joints would start at Dean's. On the corner of 7th Street and Granny's was a beer joint. That's where they'd start. If they made it to Texas Avenue, they did good. If they made it to Texas Avenue, they did wonderful, man. Shit, come on now. Now this is where my grandmother's house was. This is come see. See, he was raised in my grandmother's they tore the house down. This is Mr. Chu's house right there. That's Mr. Allen's house. That vacant lot right there was where my grandmother's house was. Edgar's house was next door. My grandmother bought 2 lots. When we were living on 9th Street and renting, my grandmother bought 2 lots out there in the new edition, the Roosevelt edition. Those lots was going, I found out later on, Richard, because we were gonna put a banner up announcing the Roosevelt edition. Some months ago, some years ago, we was talking about that. But that area right there, man, that Roosevelt edition, it wasn't about 4 or 5 houses out there at the time. And they had just opened Carver School, which was on the other side of where the bridge is now. That bridge wasn't there. You know, that bridge wasn't there. And they had a drawbridge downtown to go to Pleasure Island. So when my grandmother, I don't know how she got that money. My grandfather was making money. He worked at Port Iron. $1.75 an hour was minimum wage, and that's what he made. I know that to be a fact because I worked there one summer. It was a summer job while I was in college. And $300, she bought 2 lots. She gave 1 lot to my uncle, who was his grandfather. Those of you that may not know it, his grandfather was really a hell of an athlete during the time of Lincoln High School. They talk about James Gamble and all these people, man. Lincoln High School was known for winning state championships way back in the day. It didn't start with James Gamble. You know, it started way back in the day with Posey. Coach Posey was, when they had Ellis Wise and them boys was quarterback, and McElroy. Big Ike Linden is this boy's grandfather, who was my uncle, was my mama's brother. Now I got a whole lot of little uncles. My grandfather married another woman after he divorced my grandmother. Every now and then my grandfather would come over with these little babies, say, this is your uncle. Well, I wasn't accustomed to seeing no babies as being my uncle. Big Ike was my uncle. My grandmother had some brothers that was my great uncles. You know nothing about no baby being my uncle. Every now and then he had about, 4 or 5 sons. Because it's Ronnie, Lonnie, Desiree, Reginald, Calvin, Patrick, that's where Patrick's dead now, and Iris, the sister. one sister. So I got a lot of family members here, but this is the last of the Perkins right here. You know, she and her sister, the last of the Perkins. Though her last name is not Perkins, mind you. I'm the last of the Perkins, Brother Richard. I'm the last of the Perkins. Go ahead, Krista. Next one, Krista. I'm having a good time, people. Don't think that I wasn't. I was on my way here. Krista was giving me a hard time. I was leaving Beaumont, and she was giving me a hard time, man. Yeah, I got to tell her on it. I got to tell her. That's right, because she is one of the reasons why, Richard, I am still alive. God sent her to me. I'm 30 years older than this child. There he is, Manuel Casper. He's another reason why. That's the other guy that was the reason why I've got 32 degrees, man, in the shrine. Yeah, that's the guy. That's him and that guy right back there. There's reasons for that, Brother TJ. There's reasons for that, man. Next one, Krista. Carver Elementary School used to be on the other side of this thing. And when they opened, I was 5. I had already gone to Lincoln High School for kindergarten. And they opened Carver, and we was in the first group of first graders that went to Carver. Now, John Augustine, he may argue with me about that. Tosh, he won't argue with me about that. He wasn't in the first grade. You know, he was in another grade, but he did go to Carver, but he was in another grade. I was in the first group of first graders that went to Carver Elementary School. He went to Lamar. You know. We had 3, we had Lamar University, and we had Lamar Elementary School on the west side. Out in El Vista, they had Phyllis Wheatley. They hadn't opened Booker T. Washington yet. And then they had Carver open. And on the other side of that bridge there, that bridge wasn't there, was the campus where I went to elementary school. And my grandmother, if Glenn Alexander was here, he would tell you, my grandmother used to walk from 9th Street in Texas, stop at Jules eating that barbecue place and buy barbecue to bring to me and my brother. That's how we ate lunch. My grandmother would walk. If you didn't watch the seagulls with your food, they would swoop down on you, Jack, and take a sandwich right out your hand. No, I'm serious. And if you didn't watch them, one day I wore a white shirt. My grandmother put me in a white shirt, and I would sit out there on the back campus. Man, one of them birds pooped on me on a white shirt. Can you imagine what that looked like? And there weren't no white shirts out there no more after that. Come on, Krista. In front of Lincoln High School, this is before they put the fence up. You know, we didn't have a fence around Lincoln High School. They'd have made a prison, made a little prison out of it now. Got a big old fence around it. I don't know who even took that, Richard. I don't know who stood for that kind of mess, man. You know, big old fence. Now, on that west side of town, we had a rival school right across the street from us. Sacred Heart was right across the street from us. And when it was basketball season, we could look to get a whipping from Sacred Heart. Because them boys' goals was higher than the basketball goals at Lincoln in the gymnasium. Them boys practiced. Them Samson boys was dunking the ball in the 50s. That's right, they was dunking the ball, Joe, in the 50s. And long before these NBA players started with their dunking, man, them guys been dunking the ball, and Samson was. But Sacred Heart come over there and beat us up. But we called them a bunch of prisoners because they had them uniforms that they would wear to school. It was Catholic students. So we called them prisoners. They had a big old brick wall too around that back campus. Yeah, One thing about them girls I found out, Richard, once they came out them green skirts, boy, they was something else. Them girls was something, when they put on ordinary street clothes and come out them uniforms, boy, them girls was something else, man. Go ahead, Krista. Okay, now these are some of the people that came out of that group. This is right here is Rudy Akers. That down there, playing the piano, is Carl Henderson. Them boys played jazz, man. Rudy Akers left and went to FAMU, Florida A&M, which was prestigious at that time. Marching 100, didn't have no women in the band. They practiced like the football team, according to what Roy told me. Because Roy, our classmate, went to FAMU too. And he was majored in, I don't think he majored in music, but Rudy went there and majored in music, became a string bass player, played in the orchestra. He was the guy I was telling you about, Joe. Yeah, Rudy Akers. Played trombone first, that's right. I'm gonna talk about Ted. We're gonna talk about Ted a little bit. Ted was a trumpet player in high school. Went to New York City, got with them guys, man, got with Wes Montgomery and them folk, and learned how to play guitar, and there you go. Yeah, that was Ted. It's Ted Dunbar, that's my cousin. Came out of a family of nothing but pharmacists. His daddy was a pharmacist, his mama was the first black female pharmacist in the state of Texas. And he and his brother were pharmacists. They went to Texas Southern Pharmacy School. He left, his brother left and went to California. He left and went to the East Coast and was friends with a friend of mine, Simon Estes. Simon Estes was a singer in the Metropolitan. Well, Simon was a friend of mine. Yeah, him and Robert McFerrin. That's right, that's right. That's exactly right. See, Joe will say through some history with me. See, when I lived in New York, man, these guys, I hung out in Greenwich Village, and that's where the blacks would hang out. We hung out in Greenwich Village, we got out of Harlem. The only people that hung out in Harlem were street people, drug addicts and the drug dealers and the pimps and the prostitutes. That's who hung out in Harlem. Greenwich Village was where the artists was. Leroy Jones, the last poet, was a friend of mine. Melvin Van Peebles, I know. A lot of them. That's right. I'm trying to Kim Bass, that's right. Basically, Bob Dylan was there. Somebody else was one of my favorites though. Miles Davis. I get to see Miles Davis at the Village Vanguard. Coltrane. Coltrane was dead already when I got to New York. He had already passed away. But Miles Davis and Cannonball Adderley and Dizzy Gillespie. Jazz was my thing. And if you want to hear jazz and good, saying bye to the reporter back here from Channel 12, thank you, my man. Thank you for coming. This is informal, man. I always have these informal meetings, and I like it like this. I haven't sung a note either. That's so wonderful. I'm gonna sing something for you guys. But Ted was friends with Simon, and so I did an album that Joe has played on his radio station called We Three Kings, which was three black guys. A jazz pianist called Joe Bonner, and Lionel Young, who was a classical violinist who played blues. And so I commissioned those guys, man. I was singing with a group there in Denver. I sing with several groups in Denver, that's why I don't do choir work now. But I was singing with a group, and this guy who was one of the producers of this choir that I was singing with knew some people, some musicians, so he posted some ads for me. So Joe Bonner answered the ad, and so did Lionel Young. First time I went to Joe's house, he opened the door with a terry cloth white robe on, some old burgundy double mid pants on, and some white loafers. And I looked at my wife and I said, what the world is this? But he had one of them little Yamahas that sat on his table. And he started it up. And he ran through a riff. And I took that and I told her, I said, we're gonna be all right. And George played it for Christmas. I was in Denver, Joe, when I listened at your broadcast of We Three Kings. And so it was the three black guys, so we named it We Three Kings. We Three Kings is the title tune of the album. I did that as a fundraiser for a shelter that my wife had there in Denver. And so that's how that came about. But Ted was a friend of mine. I sent him a copy of that album. He told me, he said, man, that sounds good. He says, wish he was back in New York, but at that time I was here in Port Arthur. I did the We Three Kings in 91. I sang the national anthem in '93. And all of that was around that same era when Christine and I were married. I've had 3 wives. I've had 1 black woman and 2 Caucasians. 1 from Europe, 1 from Germany, and 1 from South Dakota. I was living in South Dakota when I came here from when my mom took ill. He called me and told me that my mother was ill. And so I came from South Dakota. I had just left here too, because this is right after Rita. I came and met them in Tyler, right outside Tyler, and followed them into Beaumont and into Port Arthur. And my mom's best friend of 40 years or 50 years had passed away, Joel Lee Patterson, passed away while they were evacuated. So I met them. I took off on a Monday morning from South Dakota. I drove all day and all night. Pulled up at 5:30 in front of their motel room there in Lindale. Lindale is the little town that they were in outside of Tyler, 10 miles north of Tyler. I met them there. But anyway, and I've been here ever since, man. Came back here, I closed my business down. I had a barbecue business in a little town called Martin, South Dakota, which was on the border of South Dakota and Nebraska, 10 miles from Merriman, Nebraska. And little town was on Pine Ridge Reservation. I was 30 miles from Wounded Knee. And I was on the Sioux Reservation. My wife was part Sioux. Yeah, my wife was part Sioux, I'm sorry. Now this guy here, that's Roy Gabriel, right there. You recognize him, Richard? Right, you recognize that girl right there? Right there with the yellow star in front of her. Dolores Barnes. Musician. Roy Gabriel is a friend of ours, and he lives in Indianapolis right now. And Roy was one of those people that left and went and played music in Florida A&M, and became quite the musician. Dolores Barnes was one of those classical musicians. Went on and got a degree from Lamar University. Taught school in Beaumont. Independent school district there in Beaumont. She didn't go on and do any singing. And see, when she went to Lamar University had just come out of the segregative idea. Elmo Willard and Theodore Johns had just won that lawsuit for integrating Lamar University. Lamar University was not a place that black people went. That's where school. We went to Port Arthur College, which is now Lamar University in Port Arthur, but that used to be Port Arthur College. You could go there. This is the old choir picture here. That's Dolores Barnes down there. Go ahead, Krista. Next one. Ha ha, y'all know that guy up there? Y'all know this fella up here? See that fella up there? And that guy down there in the corner, that's Benny Woods. He and I went to Baylor together. Benny Woods he got a PhD, and his son, I think, played on one of them late night talk shows. They're musicians. His wife is a musician. He taught at University of North Carolina, I think it is, or South Carolina. Yeah. But Benny was a piano player. Boy, look at here. When I saw this, Richard, I like to pass out for, because I hadn't seen a picture of Jerry in a long time. Jerry Polidor was my good friend, man. He's singing, believe it or not, right there, he's singing, "Change is Gonna Come." I don't know if you remember that assembly program, Richard, when he sang that. We never knew Jerry could sing. And after then, he joined the choir. But that's Jerry Polidor there. Right here, excuse me, I'm old and can't get around. Okay, this is Herbert Anderson. Herbert Anderson was the first African-American news announcer here in the Golden Triangle. Boy, don't you take care of me? See how spoiled? Boy, ain't nothing like it, Richard. That's all I can tell you, brother. Ain't nothing like it. Ain't nothing like it, Jack. She tell people, "Oh, he's so small." But then she'll push me all over the planet in that wheelchair. She will, and don't complain not a word. But anyway, that's Jerry Polidor was my friend. That's David Batiste. David Batiste became impresario, man of arts here in the state of Texas. He had a big office there in Austin, Texas, man. Yeah, David got really involved in that. That's I think what that boy's name on the end there. One of them. Oh, I can't think of his name. Yeah. But anyway, she done gone back to me. She likes my picture. She got one sitting on her desk out there in ExxonMobil. See, I was telling you guys about this girl. Yeah, that's Herbert Anderson right there. He had a different approach to speaking than most of us. Richard, real proper speaking guy, man. And you guys may not remember. I'm sure Miss Tate does. Remember when Thomas Boulevard didn't run all the way to Houston Avenue like it does now? It stopped at the tracks there. This is before they built Lewis Manor. There used to be a house there, the Andersons, was right next to the tracks. The house was, right next to the track. When the train would pass through, because trains used to pass through there. Yeah, Kansas City Southern was active back then, man. And so that's what time that was with that, man. So Herb became the first African-American news announcer here for Channel 4. Huh? You and Herbert? Yeah. Herb was a good guy, man. That was, on Sundays, my mother got a car. My stepfather's the guy who was gonna send me to Baylor. He got killed after the weekend I came from Baylor. I used to work at the Black Cat. All I would do was bartend and give the setups. Ice, buckets of ice, and 2 soda pops, a 7-Up and a Coke. That's all that I could sell. I wasn't 19 years old, I was just 18. But they would take me out to the Black Cat, which was out there off of Stadium Road behind Green Lawn Memorial, Green Lawn Cemetery. That was a nightclub out there. That was Johnson Cemetery. See, that was a time when black people weren't being buried in Green Lawn. They was being buried out there, Live Oak, or they was buried at Johnson's, which was at the back part of Green Lawn Memorial. Well, there was a nightclub out there called the Black Cat. And Billy Broussard was my stepdad at the time, and he and Elwood Connors got killed coming from out there that Saturday night. They called me and asked me did I want to come. I had rode a bus, man, all day long from Waco. You know, back then them buses would stop everywhere, you know, and so he died anyway. Anyway, go on, Krista. Jerry Polidor, he's passed away. Long before you, Richard. Yeah, that's long before you. Them band uniforms, they didn't even have band uniforms like that when you was. Richard Thomas up here, man. I'm sorry I didn't introduce him to you guys. He's the last drum major living that Lincoln High School had. That guy right there. That's right. Get out there on the field at halftime and dance, boy. That's when they first started that. No, that's when black drum majors first started. When Richard and them guys in high school first started that, man, you know, that dancing, and boy, they was doing all. Man, you know who's here in Port Arthur now? Sylvester Jones. Sylvester Jones, the guy that taught me to dance. Back then it was a dance called a slop. The band would be coming in and they play them riffs, them drum, you know, the drum rhythmics. They play them drums and we get out there, me and Sylvester do the chop. We do the slop for the band coming in off the back campus back there. That West Side people, all I can tell you about the West Side is this. We lived on the West Side. We knew that we could not go past Houston Avenue after a certain time of evening. My mama worked on downtown Proctor, and my grandmother was a domestic worker. She worked for one of the richest guys in Port Arthur at the time, Mr. Cooper, who had most of the slot machines. See, Port Arthur, up until 1962, was a real bad area. Yes, please do. Yeah, we were. That's right. That's right. We looked out for you. When they talk about it takes a village to raise a child, We knew that to be a fact. If we messed up in school, we could, believe me, before you got home, if it gave you a note to take home, but you can get lost, you lose it if you want. Them school teachers was gonna call your house. They was either classmates with your mama and daddy, or they was either the school teachers of your mama and daddy. So it wasn't no getting away. And at West Side, everybody knew everybody. It was one of them kind of, who was that said about the, you said about the sardines? Yeah, we were. We packed in over there, man, but. Right. Right. That's right. But before then, it was the West Side, the projects. If you didn't know nobody that lived in that housing project out there, Brother Butte, you was looking for a fight. You were looking to get beat up out there. Good thing I knew Lil Butch and Bashira was out there. Those were my partners. So we walked through that Texaco yard from Lincoln High School. This is when 11th Street ran all the way to Lincoln. This is before they built the auditorium. See, they didn't have that auditorium. And 11th Street used to run all the way through, from the back campus all the way up to Lincoln. That's where Bugs and them lived, on 11th Street. And, but that West Side, man, we had such a good life over there. You know, it was like that. It was like that, man. And when I left and went to New York City, I'm telling you, when I went to New York, man, people told me, say, you from Port Arthur? Oh, that's little New York. 1962, I was about to tell you guys, 1962, the Fed sent a guy in here named James. First person they bust was the deputy sheriff of Jefferson County, D.P. Moore. D.P. Moore was tied up with a madam named Savannah. She had 2 or 3 brothels, West Side, but basically on the East Side. Now there was some on the West Side. There was little huts on the West Side, though, on 8th Street, between Texas Avenue and Joe Louis. And see, when I tell you about the little car I was riding, the red light district was just around the corner from there. Black men couldn't go in there and fraternize with them prostitutes. Believe me, it was only for white men. They would come across the town. We had 5 guys, 4 or 5 Caucasian merchants. The Terrios, the Fontanas. Oh, I'm trying to think. Mr. Zeno was a Caucasian. They came over on the West Side and opened businesses for us. The Terrios had a grocery store on the corner of 9th and Washington. And he ended up opening the brisket room in another place up there, but that was Roy. That was his brother that opened the brisket room. And y'all see me wiping my nose? My sinuses is messing. I'm gonna say, believe me, God has been good to me this year. I almost lost my legs at the beginning of last year. As you can see, I've got compression socks on, had two ulcers on both legs. And one of them was all the way down to the bone, which the abscess was. Hyperbaric chamber, and the wound care over at St. Elizabeth's, man, Dr. Ahmad did wonders. You see me in my Muslim outfit today. I don't usually wear Muslim clothing unless I'm going to the masjid. I'm a Muslim, everybody. People don't know that about me because they see me in Christian churches singing, but that's my audience, is Christian churches. Now, believe me, when I became a Muslim, I became the muezzin. That's the guy that says 5 times a day he climbs up on the minaret. And he says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I got the name Bilal. A brother gave me that name out of Philadelphia. When I first became a Muslim, after Elijah Muhammad passed away, I became a Muslim in the Nation of Islam. It all changed. Amen, Muhammad. But I kept my attraction with singing in Christian settings. TJ, don't look at me, ladies. You got to look on your face. TJ is this and that. I'm a Muslim, man. That's what I do, you know. And I was the imam here in Port Arthur when I first came back here in the 70s, late 70s. Not active. Christians are Christian. And we go to Methodist Church. Met this white girl singing Mozart's Requiem in Beaumont. She's a metallurgical engineer at ExxonMobil and has a beautiful voice, as you could hear as she sang the Negro National Anthem. Can you hear me? Okay, I can certainly do that. And so anyway, that's where we are. But when this guy came in 1962, he bust D.P. Moore and he bust the prostitution houses and they bust gambling in the Golden Triangle. But this was a hell of an area at one point during that particular time. They had a riot in Beaumont. We never had one here in Port Arthur. I was in a choir that sang for Martin Luther King 2 weeks before he was assassinated. Prairie View's choir sang for Martin Luther King at the Lorraine Motel. 50 years, the 50th anniversary, they called the remaining members of that choir back to Memphis. So we did the 50-year anniversary, commemorating the death of Martin Luther King on April 4th, 1968. And we were on our way to Indianapolis. We had a Caucasian bus driver. We used the Green Book. You know, you guys have heard about the Green Book, the movie The Green Book. Well, Dr. Anderson had the Green Book. And so when we made certain stops in certain towns along the Chitlin circuit, well, we used the Green Book. I can only remember in the 4 years that I was alive in that choir, staying in a hotel only twice. Once in San Francisco, and then once in somewhere in New Mexico we was at singing. But we would leave Prairie View's campus, man, somewhere like February 14th, right after Valentine's Day. We'd be gone sometimes 3 weeks to a month, riding on a Greyhound bus, living in a bus, singing matinee performances here, and then singing a concert somewhere later on. But anyway, we got stopped in Memphis. Our bus driver being a Caucasian, he went to the Radisson. We ended up going to the Lorraine Motel, which was a mom and pop's motel owned by two, a black couple. And so we moved in there, and Martin Luther King had been there, and then he came back. And 2 weeks later, he was assassinated. We found out we was in Indianapolis singing, and found out that he had been assassinated. We was on our way back to Texas at the time. But the guy that came in and busted all of the nightlife here in Port Arthur and Beaumont was instrumental in doing a lot of stuff. Sarah Bellion, who was the curator, I don't know if you guys saw that poster. Where you put that poster, Chris? Oh, it's in front of me. That poster was done by the girl that was the curator at the Gulf Coast Museum. Those of you that know us, if you would be so kind as to drop a note to Tom over there, the curator. It's time for them to install me in the museum. Like I said, I'm the only African American. I'm gonna give Gary Parks Gary Parks is the timpani player. Used to be the timpani player for the Beaumont Symphony Orchestra. He goes to Wesley now. He says his dad was an opera singer with the little company that he used to have. Because they had a little company in Beaumont, back in the day. And just like in New York, when I went to New York, I was singing in New York City Opera Company, which was a farm club, like a farm team for the Metropolitan. Rudolph Bing in that group that was over there, I hate to, I don't want to sound homophobic, but he was homosexual. Then he was Caucasian. They'd hired a lot of black women, Kathleen Battle and Grace Bumry and Leontine Price, and all them people were singing at the Mexican. And they went hiring many men, and then those of them that they had hired at the Mets, they blackballed them like Simon Estes. Them black guys, man, they were standing up. All they wanted to do was give us Porgy and Bess to sing, until they came up with Scott Joplin's Premonition. Then Houston Grand Opera did premonition. Now that it's caught on, they do it a little bit more. But my main roles were Astro, Magic Flute, for which he played a portion of it on the radio the other day, and Balthazar, I'm All in the Night Visitors. Which this Balthazar, this is my costume from I'm All in the Night Visitors. This is me singing to, if you can see the stands are full, 30,000 grand. I was honored to do that. And believe me, the way that I got this, Mile High Stadium was where the Rockies first started playing baseball. They hadn't built Coors Field yet. I was working for Mark. Yeah, I was working for Aramark when the Rockies started playing baseball. Aramark was the company that handled the concessions at that stadium and the Shark Stadium. Both of them were farm teams at the time. I'm standing, suite attendant. I had 4 suites that I attended. Cooper Librand was a computer company, was a CPAs or whatever they call them, a public accountant. Then I had the Rocky Mountain News. I had Tom Shane, the Diamond Man. You know about Tom Shane, because it's a Colorado company. And then I had one other group that I had, but I had 4 suites. I'm standing out there smoking a cigarette. You're still smoking in the stadiums then. That was an organ player that played during the baseball games. He was playing Impossible Dream. I'm standing there smoking a cigarette and I start singing. The program director passed and she came back. She said, "Oh, you got a beautiful voice. You want to sing the national anthem?" Right up my alley. You got me. I told her, I said, "Yeah, I love it. What do I have to do?" She said, "Turn in a cassette tape of you doing it a cappella," and that's what I did. September 16th, I think it was. September 16th. Oh, it's on here. September the 4th, 1993. That's all silk what I got on there too, Richard. That's silk pants, buddy. That's silk pants. That's a silk jacket. That's a silk shirt. I got some silk underwear all these. I'm standing there, buddy, and I bust out. I had heard this anthem, national anthem done one time for opening day. I'm trying to think of who the guy that did it. But he started off with, "America, America, God's breath is shed on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shore." Then I start, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early boutte?" Say, man.
You should have thrown a loop on him and sang the second verse.
Yes. That's right. That's a hell of a verse there too, Joe. I don't think he could have handled it. See, I changed the wording around Old Man River. Old Man River starts off. No. Niggas all work on the Mississippi. Niggas all work while the white man play. That's how Jerome Kern and them wrote. And they wrote that for Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson was the first guy to sing Old Man River. And so I changed the words. And I said, colored folk all work on the Mississippi. Colored folk all work while the white man play. Show me that stream called the River Jordan. Show me that stream called the Judgment Day, whatever. I'm happy Bay Lewis is not here, boy, because I'd have to sing that today. Yeah. But I am going to sing this song for you guys, and this is one of my favorite songs. And I want Krista to play this at my funeral. But I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm tossed in this wide world alone. All hope have I for tomorrow. I'm going to heaven, my home. Sometimes I'm tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. But I've heard of a city called heaven. I'm going to make it my home. My brother and sister want on me. I ain't gonna give y'all no more of that because I'll start crying. But that's my song. Back in the day, I put out a song. Back in the day, there was a minister here, a Baptist minister. His name was Dave Davis, and he had a radio program on Sunday mornings. The radio station was way out there on Guffway Drive, 16th Street to me, going toward the Orange Bridge. And I did this song, and my mama said, "I don't know why you sang that song. I'm not dead." But I still sing that song, and every time I hear it, I think about that. She told me that. It goes, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. People, when I was a kid in high school, I used to sing to my grandmother. And, well, I was really, really into that thing. I used to sing to him over the telephone. I was up in Indiana, and I would sing to him. He was a baby. And he wanted me to sing some operatic number, and I'd pick something. Da dee dee da dee da dum dee da la da dee 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 da da dee da da da. He used to love that, and that comes from Man from La Mancha. That's a Man from La Mancha piece. And so anyway, man, we're boiling down now. We're getting down to the time to get out of here. Carl Wayne was the rhythm and blues player that had a band in Port Arthur. And he played the little beer joints up and down Houston Avenue and those places, and 7th Street. We had a classmate, Robert Paul. His brother, James Paul, was quite a musician. Was that James that was the older brother? Yeah, Robert was the one that finished with us. James he became a jazz musician too and played quite a bit in this area. James had an emotional problem, and sometimes we would pass in front of the house. They lived right in front of Lincoln High School, and James would be out there in the yard, man, with his robe on conducting. I don't know if you remember that. Cherry pink and apple blossom white. Yeah, cherry pink and apple blossom white. Yeah. Couldn't stop him from the pole. This is McNeil, yeah. Right, James. Right. Well, James ended up passing away after a while, after he had these bouts with mental illness. He ended up passing away, but James was a trumpet player, quite a trumpet player. And at that time, he's talking about Solo Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White was a favorite of trumpet players for high school bands at that time. Da 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 dee da 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 dee 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 dee. He loved playing that, man. He could play. Good musicians came out of Port Arthur from the west side, and that's what we're talking about. Again, like I said, we're gonna use this taping. I don't know. I'm gonna use it maybe in here, one of those Black History Months. I'm really gonna pull that concert that I did with Chris Vaughn over there with First United Methodist. I did a lot of singing that day with Paul Robeson. Man, I did a lot of Paul Robeson's music. Paul Robeson was an inspiration of mine. He was my idol. My voice teacher at Prairie View, Dr. Anderson, used to tell me I sounded like William Warfield or Paul Robeson. William Warfield was another bass baritone with the Metropolitan. And now there's a guy named Eric Owens, who is quite the bass. He sings the Ninth Symphony. And see, I sang Beethoven's Ninth Symphony too. Da da dee da la da dee da dum dum. She's singing too. Beaumont Symphony Orchestra is supposed to be doing that this season, I believe. Yeah. He's had Chelsea on, Chelsea Tipton. We're fortunate to have a black conductor in this area. I'm hoping Glenn Alexander's boy will come down here and do some conducting with this orchestra. I think Chelsea will let him do it too. Cause he and Chelsea was on your radio program, weren't he? Yeah. Right, yeah. Anyway, people, this is what I've got for you today. I told Stephen I'd try to get out of here by 4:30. No. I said that I would. We've got an awful lot of food back here that you guys can partake in. Please make yourselves welcome to that. I'm happy that you all came out to hear what I had to say. I'm sorry I didn't sing more for you, but this was more of what I wanted to do today, was reminisce on some of the things. And I didn't really go through most of the photographs. If you all get a chance to go to the event center on 7th Street, Ransom Howard and Grannis, please go in. They've got photographs in there. A lot of these photographs that I've got came from there. Let me tell you this before I close. The west side of Port Arthur, we had everything that we needed on that west side. Yeah, we was a self-sustaining community on that west side, man. They had clothing stores. She done it to me. Yeah, this is some of the people's, this is the ladies' auxiliary. Edgar, you know who this person is? Come here. This person right here. Do you know who that person is right here, Edgar? It is. Right there.
Miss West?
Yeah.
Martha West? Her mama made the cool cups in the
Yeah.
neighborhood?
Right there is your grandmother, huh?
My grandmother.
Right there. That's Edgar's grandmother, Willie Mae Linden. Yeah, Willie Mae Linden is the grandmother. Like I said, his grandfather was quite the athlete in this area here. Big Edgar Linden he was really the first professional athlete now they say BB was, when he went and played with the Cubs. My uncle was playing with the Cleveland Indians, was scheduled to go to the Los Angeles Rams farm team, because he played all sports. He was all around. When he went to the Army, my grandmother thought he was going to be sent to Korea. So it was during the Korea conflict. It was at the first part of the 50s. My uncle ended up going to Germany, playing football for the Army, through the discus and the shot put. Got trophies for that, man. I mean, he was international. They tearing him up. One of the greatest things for me was when I'd go to these contests, and it'd be 500-600 students there, from all over, from 4 different states: New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and sometimes Arizona. Sometimes Louisiana. We had a couple of people from Southern University. And when I would tear them up, it got to the point, Boutte, when I would walk in rehearsal halls, especially for our Mall in the Night Visitors, you see them guys that was there to audition, packing up their stuff. They'd start packing up, like, I'm serious. My right-handed guard. They'd start packing up and they'd start whispering that. I had been singing on Mall in the Night Visitors since I was a college student. A lot of the music I sang, when I went to Prairie View, I'd sing at Lincoln High School, man. Burley Mitchell had got us ready, man. I went to Prairie View and I was tearing them up. Bob Duckers, who's a friend of mine that's in Columbus, Ohio, he's got a big church in Columbus. They came there, and I remember him coming to the Indiana Scholastic League, singing and winning state championship with people. I was always in an octet group. Lincoln High School would tear them up with the octets. And I played second in the district here under Taylor Battle, was the guy who beat me, went to Charlton Pollard. I played second, he plays first. But Burley Mitchell told me at that time, said, boy, if you just hang in there, you got something here. And I was a tenor at the time, Boutte. I was a second tenor. My voice changed right before I finished high school to baritone. I sang baritone because I sang the 7 last words of Christ, and I sang the baritone in the second word of the 7 last words. So when I went to Prairie View, man, my voice had changed. I had become a bass basso. I was a bass baritone is what they was calling me. But I could sing low C and I could sing F sharp above the staff. And my voice dropped again when I went to New York. And I sang Balthazar and I sang Oasis. I had you play that the other day, man. There's some bass notes in that bootay that is unbelievable. My girlfriend was in that opera with me and she looked up at me. She couldn't believe that the sound, she told me, she said, I can't believe that kind of sound came from you.